emissions over time, now going out to 2050. You see lots of different energy sources, and we can't have an energy conference without thinking about alternative energy sources, solar, wind, etc., and their contribution to the energy equation from a greener perspective as well. But I want to show here the green on the top, which is the most significant going forward and the largest component going forward, is actually in terms of efficiency. So while we think about alternative resources and things, solar, wind, hydro, etc., on the supply side, the biggest contributions to reduction is in the efficiency itself. And so this is a key component of our thinking. We have to think about the efficiency equation of these systems, not just starting to put solar panels and windmills on every access point inside the network. And I think that's a real important point that we'll get to later on, because there is nothing prohibiting us from a technology perspective today to put a solar panel on every base station. What is limiting it is the base station now is so power hungry that the solar panel is large, so aesthetics, as well as expensive to do that. So even with diesel prices continuing to increase and whatnot, it's still, from an economic perspective, much more affordable to continue to use generators and whatnot instead of using these alternative resources. So let me introduce you to the research part of energy efficiency. 3 years ago, we did a calculation inside of Bell Labs looking at the absolute minimum amount of energy required in a network. This was built on a technique developed by Professor Tucker, who you'll hear about later on, the thinking about energy in terms of flows in a network. Professor Tucker's seminal work focused on optical systems. We extended that to wireless systems. And it turns out that when you do this calculation, including all of the complications around wireless and interference and taking into the most idealistic kind of model you can, it turns out that networks today can be a factor of 10,000 times more energy efficient than today's network. 10,000 times. So yesterday, or the day before yesterday, I was at WCNC, the preeminent wireless research conference globally. There were over 1,000 participants there looking at workshops and whatnot on improving wireless systems. And these 1,000 of the world's top researchers were struggling to get a factor of 2 in terms of system performance. And from an energy perspective, we're 40 dB away from the theoretical limit. 40 dB. So think about it from just a pure research perspective, the opportunities in front of us for green. The equations are complicated. The thinking behind it is complicated because there's no silver bullet. I'll go through some of the 3 key areas, but I can tell you right now, there is no silver bullet. There's no one technology that will solve it. You have to look at the network in total. Because if you focus on the air interface, you will go into coordinated spatial multiplexing to make it more efficient. But at that point, you have to think about how to solve these complex equations. And so the baseband processing goes up, the backhaul requirements go up, and you shift the equation from the air interface into backhaul and computation. Once you solve that, you shift it into routers. And once you solve that, you shift it into optical transport. So here is an opportunity, just purely intellectual, that I'm giving the premier science research institution in the world a golden problem that hasn't been thought about before. A factor of 10,000, and the people who solve it will make the breakthroughs for the next 50 years. Now, because of the fact that this is not one silver bullet, we created a consortium called Green Touch. I show here 52 member organizations. By the way, IISC is one of the members. You joined a year ago. I would welcome your participation, because joining Green Touch is only the first step. There are over 300 researchers in Green Touch actively working on this problem. And if you participate remotely, you will only gain a certain advantage. These are active research programs which you should be participating in directly. And I just looked at the participation matrix for this institute, and I can just leave it at it can be much, much higher, given the preeminence and given the intellectual horsepower of this university. I hesitate to always put in member numbers. Right now, actually, talk was done a couple weeks ago. It's now over, it's 55 members. Members are joining every day. It's 25 research